James. How are you?
How we doing? Good to see y'all.
Yeah. So, James, I'm Scott. I'm the one who's been talking to you.
I've been watching some videos on you, man.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good stuff.
There you go. Sorry.
Hope they're good ones.
Yeah, no, they're great. It's very cool.
And then these are my two co-hosts, Kat and Amy.
Well, hello,
Kat
Kat.
here.
Hello, Amy.
Hi. Hello.
And so Amy and I actually met you at the 2016 regionals.
Yep. And I'll say Amy looks familiar as well. Yeah.
Oh, cool.
So we're glad to have you on. We're really informal and laid back and just like to have a conversation. The record button's already on. So we'll just kind of get into it and kind of go. This is your life, James Hobart.
I'm just kind of admiring your studio setup, man.
It's actually been, some of the athletes have sent me some shirts and I just frame them behind. They sign them and then I have posters from the games. And
who's that playing guitar though over there over your left shoulder?
That's Eddie Van Halen.
That is, I say Eddie Van Halen. Yeah. Oh man. Yeah. Rest in peace. Right.
Yeah.
What a crazy year.
Yeah. 2020 can end anytime now.
I know it's gonna soon, man. But yeah, awesome. No, I'm happy to chat. Grateful to be here. Yeah, cool to get more insight on your story. Watched a couple videos on you and just your journey, which is pretty amazing. So I hope all is well.
Yeah, all is getting well. We're just about back to full go. So
cool.
So for our listeners, we have James Hobart. You are an 8-time CrossFit Games athlete, 3-time champion in the team division, and the only person to ever do it on 2 different teams.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, no, I've said this before. I feel very lucky and fortunate. My competing cup is full, quite full, and lucky to have those experiences. And yeah, especially because they weren't ever expected, really, which is always cool.
Right. So I heard that you were actually the formal winner of the worst baseball player ever.
I was what?
Worst baseball player ever.
I was a terrible baseball player. Yeah. That was like little league. I was so bad. I think my dad always wanted me to be better at baseball than I was. And because he really liked that game. And it was one of the only sports that I think he really enjoyed playing and watching. And man, if I was pitching, you either hit a home run or I hit you. You know, those are the options that I had. So there were sports I was better at.
You and Kat would get along great.
Kat, are you?
Yeah.
I didn't introduce myself to you. Are you not a great baseball player either?
No, I can't throw to save my life. And my son is lined up for a D1 scholarship for baseball as a pitcher. And it's just kind of ironic that I can't throw to save my life.
But maybe you whatever you had a latent ability, you transferred it all to him. That's what you should
probably do. Yeah, how he's so awesome. Yeah.
I think it's one of the most beautiful athletic movements that anyone can do. Like when you watch or listen to somebody throw well, it's just like it has such a cool sound to it. So congrats to him. If you don't mind sharing, where is he gonna end up?
He's a senior this year. He's going to William and Mary next year in Williamsburg, cool. Virginia.
Yeah. Oh, congrats to you.
He's a smart kid. So
yeah, I was gonna say you must be super proud.
Yeah, big time. Not right this second because we're not speaking, but yeah, eventually I will be. It's he's 17.
Yeah,
it's rough.
No, yeah. I remember very, very well waging total war against my mom for years, but now we're best friends. So
I actually doing some research on you this morning saw that Torrin Simpson did a little documentary on you, and the part where you were talking about your relationship with your mom, it reminded me of my relationship with my son and how eventually he would probably go on camera and say the same thing, but just not today.
Yeah, it takes a while, but that's very cool. Yeah, Torrin's a beast. Yeah, anytime an Emmy winner will make a video of you, it's cool. But yeah, my mom's amazing too, so it'll happen, I think. Yeah.
So growing up, baseball wasn't your thing, but you did find some athletics in soccer and lacrosse.
Yeah, I played, soccer most of my life, after my failed baseball career at the young age of 8, 9, 10, 11. I played soccer growing up. I played lacrosse more in high school. I was always pretty active outdoors. I raced in skiing. I downhill raced briefly in high school for a few years. So I was definitely into sports, and I liked playing sports a lot. I liked team sports, and like there were things I enjoyed about baseball. I just sucked at it, like the team aspect of it was incredibly fun. So being active in sports were always a pretty big part of my life growing up. And oddly enough, I was never a gym guy. I think one of the reasons, especially once I got to high school, one of the reasons I played sports so much is because I had some friends who were in the gym. And I hated like being inside, it was like, I was allergic to that.
That's really cool. Yeah, I'm lucky enough that my daughter really likes to be outside, and I didn't have to fight that growing up.
Cause I think it's harder now. My parents, we were joking about my mom, and, I blame a lot of what I do well and my good world outlook on her. But it was like, they were growing up, we had like the little rules about like no TV, I wasn't allowed to have a TV in my bedroom, which was annoying because my friends did. And, at that time I was growing up, we had like Nintendo and Super Nintendo. And I wasn't allowed, I had to save up to buy my own. They wouldn't buy me one. And so it's like, and I was also an only
Good
child.
for them.
Yeah. Right. So it was cool. And,
Yeah.
And it's definitely a bigger challenge right now. Cause I just, the amount of distractions that are out there, and iPhones and iPads are just so cool and fun. But for me, I am an only child, and I had a pretty good relationship with most of my extended family, but it was just a lot of outside time, and that's just kind of how life rolled. And I'm way more grateful for that now at times than I was then. I mean, I loved it then, but there were definitely times where I was like, it'd be cool if I was hanging out with friends, or I could play video games more. So-and-so has, this TV set up at their house. So I'm glad that I didn't have that.
Yeah, I grew up in the same manner. I grew up in a really small town, and actually a suburb of that small town. So like 20 minutes in. And so we were in the woods. I had like 3 friends close. We were in the woods every day. And it was the best. Yeah,
there's something super special about that. It was like, I just remember a lot of my childhood, like you're just riding a bike around, and now I will say it was like, there was such an efficiency now to like friendship as far as like texting somebody, or, like if you're a helicopter friend and you have like the location of your friends on your phone, I just remember most of my childhood, most of the day was just trying to find your friends. Well, I'll bike to Joe's house. Hey, is Joe home? No, he's down at so-and-so's. I'll bike to so-and-so's house. So I'm grateful for that. And that's probably like, inadvertently a big reason why I appreciate fitness and like taking care of my body that way, is just because it was sort of, I don't know, melded into my DNA. It just kind of happened by circumstance. I was just doing it. So yeah, super lucky for that.
I thought I saw Kat moving for a question.
I was scratching my leg. Sorry.
Okay. So another parallel we kind of have is I was not the best student in high school. And it took me longer than you to flip the switch. But once I did, I became like a bookworm and ended up graduating cum laude. But it took me 15 years to get to that point.
Yeah.
You went to college and you flipped the switch and end up in law school.
Yeah.
That's all, I think, more amazing than your CrossFit feats.
Yeah. I don't know if, and I think too, you definitely had a far better athletic pedigree than I ever did. So that kind of gives you a hall pass. So don't stress about the academics too much. It's funny. I don't know if ending up I'm grateful for that people look at it as a positive thing and an impressive thing. I don't know if law school identifies that I was necessarily smart or a good student. It just, in retrospect, I think I just had a real crazy penchant for spending money. And that's why I ended up in law school. But so I finished high school, and there was this weird thing that happened to me. And in a way, again, I'll kind of blame my mom for this. And, she was always a super cool parent in the sense that, like, as long as I was in, she would always say, if you don't have a job and you're not in school, you're not living here. Like that was kind of but if I was working full time or I was in school, like she was pretty happy with whatever I was doing. And so in some ways I'm super grateful for that. Cause I was a little bit of a dilettante, and to some extent I still am, when I was younger, cause I was just interested in a lot of different things, but not to the point where I was like talented enough or putting in enough work ethic to like get a D1 scholarship. Like that just wasn't in the cards for me, but I liked, you know, jack of all trades kind of approach. And I think I've always been like that. But anyway, long story short, I was talking to my friends in my junior year of high school, and they're like, hey, where are you applying to college? And I'm like, what do you mean we're supposed to apply to college? You know, like it just, you know, it just wasn't on my mind, and it wasn't something I was totally geared toward. And then, so they all went off to school, and I had a fair amount of friends who enlisted into the Marines as well. And they did some really incredible things and just great people. But I stayed home and went to community college. And honestly, it was for the first 6 months, it was the biggest bummer, you know, like social, emotional bummer I dealt with growing up. But then when I, you know, in retrospect upon graduating, it was the best probably academic and adult decision, you know, other than maybe marrying my wife, that I've made up until this point. Just because it's like I finished my community college, and I, like you said, I kind of hunkered down, did really well. Got another scholarship to go to a full ride to a state school here in Massachusetts. And it helped develop my work ethic and attitude toward, you know, what I wanted to be and do. And it just put me around a lot of great people. And, you know, whether some of that was certainly luck, it was like wildly just this awesome decision that at the start of it, I looked at and I was like, well, this is going to suck. You know, I'm going to community college. I'm still living at home. And then 2 years later, I was like, I'm still living at home. I'm saving all this money. I'm doing really well in community college, and I got a scholarship to go to a big state school. So yeah, long story short, that turned out really well. It's like one of those things where you step on a journey and you have no idea where it's going to end, but I'm glad it went where it went, you know?
Yeah. And so then you entered law school, and that's when all the CrossFit stuff kind of came at you.
Yeah.
Right. You found CrossFit in law school. And if you want to tell that story.
Yeah, I mean, if you guys don't have anywhere to be, no, yeah. So, and again, my mom was always super cool with stuff. Like she was so graceful in her ability and willingness just let me be and do and explore stuff on my own. You know, as long as like, hey, as long as you're working, as long as you're in school, you know, that attitude, you know, was always there from her. But I was like, I finished law school, and I'll never forget this. I was probably in, I don't know, I got to the point in law school where I was just, my first semester, I was just beyond where the cutoff point is where you can get your refund if you decide like, oh, wow, this is law school. This is terrible. I don't want to be here anymore. I was like a week or a couple of days beyond that, you know, no point of return. And I remember sitting there in our property teacher, who is like your quintessential law school teacher. Like he had like this heavy wool, you know, blazer, and he had like white, we called him the silver fox, just white hair combed back. And he was sitting there saying, we're here to turn you into great lawyers. And I remember at that exact moment sitting there and thinking, oh shit, I don't want to be a lawyer. You know? And so the next, 3 years of law school, and I'm glad I did it, for the sole reason that I wouldn't have been in Boston, like you said. It's kind of like you were talking about, in your story, Scott, with the wind and the gazebo blowing over and meeting your neighbor, it was like just right place, right time. If I wasn't in Boston going to law school, there's about 100 people who were significantly important to me in my CrossFit development that I never would have met. And, and that's what I always say, law school is what brought me to CrossFit and brought me to Boston and really kind of catapulted my development and desire and passion for fitness. So, I wouldn't change that for the world, and I do appreciate the education too. Certainly. I just didn't have a huge desire to go be a practicing attorney.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what got me here.
I had that moment in one of my master's degree when you hit the halfway point and you start your thesis and you're like, is this really what I want to do?
Yeah.
But you've already invested too much money and you can't get out.
Yep.
And so you just have to knuckle down and finish it. But
yeah, I'll never forget that moment. You're here to be great lawyers. And I was like, what if I don't want to be a lawyer? And it's like, oh, probably should not have went to law school. But, you gotta, some of us are very good at learning only the hard way. So.
Yeah. I'm with you on that. So you find CrossFit and quickly you get your level 1.
Yeah. So I think I kind of inadvertently stumbled on CrossFit in 2000 early 2007 with a fellow I was training with. He passed the website on to me and I was like, we were doing some other stuff together and training. And he said, hey, you got to check this out. And then right in April of 2008, we went and did our level 1 out at Hyperfit, which was Doug Chapman's gym. He had trained, I see the Julie Fouché shirt behind you. He had trained Julie Fouché for a long time. And there I met all the classic CrossFit seminar staff crew. I met a lot of people at that seminar who would go on to be affiliate owners. One of the stories I tell is I think Katie Henniger from Rogue was taking that seminar, which is like an insane thing to think about. Bill and Katie had this young man that I think they knew who was an athlete. And he did like one of the first like sub 2.5 minute Frans, and at the time it was just like, it's just all just, it's like just this big flashy blur. Cause I was so into it, I drank the Kool-Aid as they used to say. And looking back on it, it was this really cool moment. Cause I came home and I was getting into college at the time. And, I didn't really know where CrossFit was going to take me, but I really liked it. I really believed in it. I went home and started zoning meals, and I was in college at the time, so I didn't eat anything good, but I'll tell you, I zoned everything from peanut butter and jelly sandwiches to, bow tie pasta with butter and eggs. Cause that's all you eat and beer, what else do you eat in college? But I zoned it, all of it. And I was just super hooked on it.
So you started coaching then, and did you find a passion when you got into that pretty quickly?
Yeah, I really did. And I think even if it wasn't CrossFit, and I'm glad it is CrossFit, I think I would have ended up teaching something. I just like that teacher-student relationship. I had a couple teachers at community college. This fellow by the name of Chris Laney, who is our Western civilization teacher. And man, I just saw him do what he did and the influence he had on me as a person. I was like, I want to do that. If I can pass what he passed on to me to one other single person in my life, it'll be okay. And, fitness is the vehicle I get to do that with now. And I'm really grateful for that because I believe in it. And when I started coaching, I had no desire to compete. I didn't really know what any of that meant to me, but it was just the act of, sharing with other people something I believed in and was beneficial to their life so much. I fell in love with that immediately. And even if I was the world's worst coach at the time, which I probably was, I still loved it so much.
How soon after that did your mom start CrossFit?
Okay. So that's, let me think of that timeline question. So at that time when I was starting to coach around 2008, I don't think she took her level. I was down at Mayhem at the time competing. So I don't think my mom took her level 1 until 2014 or 2015. Okay. And yeah, cause I think that's when she kind of got into it. And my mom, at the time she started CrossFit, so if it was 2015, yeah, she would have been 54, 55. Yeah. So she was about 54, I think, when she got into it. And she was always she was like a walker, she would walk every morning. And my mom had really gotten into yoga. So she was definitely, and we were one of those households, couldn't have food with food coloring in it. You go to your friend's house and you see Lucky Charms and it blows your mind that food could look that color and taste that great. And then at my house, we have non-sweetened oat bran breakfast. But anyway, so she was kind of health minded in that sense. She was tuned into that. We had a garden. She cooked most of our meals, very, very lucky for that. But, I could just tell at that time, she was just kind of getting a little older and, she had smoked most of her life and she was still doing that. And really everything that she picked up about CrossFit, except maybe for one thing, happened kind of through osmosis. She was always incredibly supportive of my competitive career, but it just sort of seemed to be this thing that wasn't for her. And I don't think I ever really pushed it on her. And the one time I did was I had been working on seminar staff at this point for about 5 years. I think it was 2015, Kat. I'd have to check, but about 4 or 5 years on seminar staff. And I had decided to work a seminar on Thanksgiving weekend. And it was down in Tennessee. And I said to my mom, hey, if you want to see what I do for work and if you want to hang out with me on Thanksgiving, so I kind of threatened her, you got to come do it level 1. And I've told this story a couple of times, but it's always amazing to me. And she said, fine, I'll come to a level 1. She says, I don't want to look like an idiot in front of your coworkers. She said, I want to sign up for an on-ramp class at a local affiliate. Mm-hmm. And then, fast forward a month after the on-ramp class, she calls me and says, hey, I bought a membership. And so what was really cool about it is as much as CrossFit was a huge part of my life and I had insight and knowledge of the curriculum and the competitive aspect of it, she kind of developed her own relationship with her fitness and bringing her body and her emotional and physical health to where she wanted to be. And I just kind of gave little tidbits along the way. And it was fun for me to be able to sit from the sideline, not sideline, but sit back a little bit and just watch her do that. It was amazing. It was amazing to see. Yeah, very lucky for me and her.
So what was the motivation to move all the way? You are a CrossFit level 4. You were on seminar staff for a long time. I don't know if you're still there or not. I know you're still doing the tip videos on YouTube.
Yep.
What was that motivation to go the whole way through? And didn't you become a flow master at one point?
Yeah. No, that's all good. Yeah. So I worked for seminar staff since, I'm going to take my sweater off real quick. Sorry about that. I worked for seminar staff since 2010. So 10 years now, and they haven't kicked me off yet. Obviously just things are different now with COVID-19 and just bringing seminars back online and just the different guidelines state to state. But sorry, I forgot. What was the question, Scott? I totally just blacked
So what
out.
was the motivation to go the whole way?
Motivation. With seminar staff, part of it was that when I went to my level 1 and I helped out, I assisted as like a test dummy at a level 2 seminar. And part of it is I just loved the people who were working at them, and gosh, if I said this once, I've said it 1,000 times. We mean it when we say it, that the cadre of seminar staff trainers is roughly 200 worldwide, are just some of the best people on the planet. And, and that doesn't even have anything to do with their fitness skills. I mean, just in their daily lives, in their backgrounds, who they are as people. Seminar staff has done an incredible job of just collecting some really talented, caring, insightful, interesting people. And, I wanted to be involved with that. I wanted to be around that. And so, I made it a personal goal of mine. And I started thinking about this when I was finishing up law school. And I actually petitioned the dean at our law school to get a 2-week extension on finals so I could go do an internship for a level 1. And she wouldn't let me. So it got postponed a little while. But I really loved the people. And like you had kind of pointed out, I was fortunate enough to be able to tune into the fact that I really like teaching. I found something, kind of from a jack of all trades background that I was willing to dump a lot of energy and a lot of passion into, and I wanted to pursue it really hard. And so I think those were probably 2 of the biggest things, just the people and how I felt toward coaching and teaching fitness.
And we say some terms, sometimes our listeners may not know what they are. A flow master is someone who runs the weekend, keeps everything organized, everything on time and flowing that way. And it's kind of the highest level of that seminar staff.
Yeah. And so our technical, I think the term that's on LinkedIn is that we're course overseers. And all jokes sometimes we're like a floor manager. Our job is to ensure quality and control of the weekend and provide leadership and developmental feedback for staff and provide after action reports for our senior management admin team that obviously are back at CrossFit Inc. that can't be at the seminar. So it's a really, really interesting job. And, the best part about it is just the people you get to meet and work beside. I really believe that I hope I've taught people half as much as I feel like I've learned from them throughout this seminar. I know it sounds cliche, but for me, it's the damn truth. It's like there are weekends I walk away and I'm like, wow, never even saw that one coming like that. It's just amazing the diversity of experiences and stories you get at seminars.
Do you see the future of that staff growing? Because I know obviously with COVID, you have more than you need.
Yeah.
But is that something that's going to expand? I know personally, the only reason I got my level 3 is because I wanted to get on seminar staff or at least have an internship opportunity. But in talking to Nadia and everyone there, it's like, I'm in the Northeast. There's so many people in the Northeast right now. I need everyone to move west, for there to be some openings there. But do you sense, based on what you know now with Eric Rosa being in charge and everything else, what do you think the future of that staff looks like?
Yeah, I mean, staff has grown, I think, consistently over the years. Obviously, this nature of COVID, I think, puts the e-brake on for a little bit. Short answer is I do think staff will continue to grow. I think we'll continually see more growth internationally. And just for the sole reason. So, right now, and I've shared these stats before, and I think it's public knowledge, but I believe over 50% of CrossFit affiliates exist outside the United States. And it's been that way for a couple of years now. And then the other big one is that I believe over 50% of web traffic going to CrossFit.com is incoming from outside. It's global. It's incoming from outside of the US, which are really cool stats. And since I started on staff, we have seen the growth, of our South American seminar staff in Asia, South Africa, parts of Africa, Australia, all over Europe. It's like we've seen those staffs grow significantly. And for the longest time when we started, we were doing most of our seminars overseas, especially somewhere where English was a second language, or not the native language, rather. We had a translator. And now we have a cadre of staff in South America that can deliver entire seminars in Spanish or Portuguese. And I think we're getting there in places like South Korea. So short answer is I do think seminar staff will continue to grow everywhere. I think just the rate at which it grows, that's going to be dependent on just what's going on right now with the pandemic. I think that's a huge one. I don't see, obviously people are like, the growth across the United States has plateaued. And well, I don't think it's going to grow as, there was this time between 2011 and 2014 where it was meteoric, and I think any of us who've been around that long remember it. But I still have people come into my gym, our affiliate here in Boston that are like, oh, I live down the block. I didn't even know there was a CrossFit gym here. So, that could mean a couple of things. Our marketing sucks. Or what I really think happening is there is still room for CrossFit to grow in the US. There's certainly room for it to grow, and probably the biggest opportunity potential to grow outside of the US. So long story short, that's like the fifth time I've said that, I'm sorry, I do think it'll continue to grow. Staff will continue to grow. And what you see too, are there's some very senior seminar staff trainers who are flow masters now matriculating and maturing into other positions that have to do with course development or online course development or overseeing admin portions of seminar staff. So they're coming off the road and moving up, which is a really nice thing to see. That kind of vertical growth in a company is a really healthy, hopeful thing. Yeah. So I don't know if you were looking for that kind of answer, but that's what you got.
No, that was great.
Okay,
Thank you.
Good.
So over your career, you have worked with some of the biggest names in coaching in CrossFit, and your career kind of started with Ben Bergeron asking you to be a part of the team. But before we get to that, Kat and I have judged in several either sanctionals or regionals, and I know that you judged at the 2011 regionals.
Yeah. Dang.
So what was that like, being on that side of the fence compared to competing?
Oh man, at that point in my competitive career, it did a couple things. It was frustrating because I wanted to be competing. It was a weird season that year. I thought I had some issue going on medically that actually, and luckily, didn't turn out to be something that was that big. So I had really taken a step back from training and competing, but still wanted to participate, and that's why I judged. I think the biggest lesson I learned was, and I hope if anyone has ever remembered judging me, I hope that they think this of me or my teammates, is that we weren't jerks. Don't treat judges poorly was probably the best thing I learned. Cause and as you guys know, it's like the volunteer community at CrossFit is epic and special. Cause it was like, I saw the way some teams would treat judges. I was just like, and don't get me wrong. Like, you're someone who I think is such an incredibly obvious story of the power of fitness to change lives and allow somebody to recapture their life. And then, that's what I saw when I watched my mom do it. And it is immensely impactful. But at the other end of the spectrum, it was like when I would see some of these athletes treat judges poorly or be rude in competition, at the end of the day, I was like, you're just doing an air squat, man. Like, good Lord, chill out. It's not that big of a deal right now. But
Thank you for saying that.
Yeah. Okay, good. I'm glad. So that was one of the biggest lessons I learned at that time. And for me, it was really hard because I still wanted to be competing. I think now I would have a little bit of a different view on it. I'm still a competitive guy. And, I watched the first event in the games this morning, and, in my head, I'm like, I think there'll never be another games like it. 5 athletes, you get to be out there, and there's just going to be this camaraderie that they have, and this like all eyes on you. That's like such a special experience. And I think anyone who's competed for a long time, always remembers that and still has a little bit of a desire for it. So I think I would still want that now as a judge, but I did enjoy judging, and you learn a lot from seeing the competition, and you respect the competition and the people involved with it, judges, volunteers, so on and so forth, media, when you participate in different parts of it. And I count myself really lucky to have that perspective, to be fortunate enough to have that perspective.
And I would say, and Kat can jump in if she thinks something different, but 95% of the athletes are awesome.
Yeah.
They're just awesome to deal with, and
Absolutely.
and are just there to do the best that they can. You have that 5% that make it difficult sometimes, but for the most part. And
I do get to, like, you're caught up, you care, you're passionate, and everybody has that slip of the tongue. But I think seeing that firsthand, I was like, oh wow, I don't ever want to do that to a judge, and I hope I never have. I don't think we have.
So you take that step back and you judge, and then all of a sudden you get a call. You start working out at CrossFit New England, and you get the call, hey, join our team. And you end up going to the CrossFit Games in a year that you took a step back. What was that like?
So I had actually been training with CrossFit Boston and Neil Thompson, who was the owner there, as an individual in 2009, 2010, still around, started training a little bit out at New England. And then 2011 was when I did the team. It was awesome. Obviously I think, one of the unique things about CrossFit New England is, and Ben, is he was one of the few guys. And I think, Adam Neefer, who was up at Fort Vancouver, I think, there was some people down at Santa Cruz, the Invictus crew with CJ, CrossFit Central crew down in Texas at that time in CrossFit 2010, 2011. They were some of the first groups who really treated competing, both team and individual side, as almost like just a more, full-time's not the right word, but maybe like a full-time job attitude toward the sport. And I think there were still more so then there were more people who was just like, it was just like a hobby, for them competing. And being at New England in that kind of environment, I think was very cool, especially because that's sort of at that time for me, that's what was developing. And, I wanted to have this become a bigger thing for me, be able to put more time into it. And, there was a handful of people at New England that, treated it more like, like you would treat, I don't know, a sport in, high level sport in high school or college. It didn't have that yet professional feel to it, but you were giving it a little bit more than just, hey, I'm going to do this workout really hard and compare my score against my buddy. I'm going to start to create a bigger ecosystem around training, recovering, and competing. And that was happening at New England at that time. And obviously it continued for many years on. So for me, it was super fun, and just fun to be tapped into more athletes who had that mindset. And we're looking into the mindset half of competition, not just doing, giving it your all physically.
And you worked with Ben Bergeron during that time. What did you learn from him?
Like I said, I think from the competitive aspect, one of the biggest things I like I said, I learned from Ben, and I think he still brings this to the sport, is that the sport of CrossFit is, and even just, not even just the sport, but just, the coaching game of CrossFit was just much more than the physical aspect of it. I think one of the biggest things that Ben brought, like I said, was just this idea that you could train the mental side of it, the emotional side of it, the strategic side of it. And there was a lot of ground to be gained there. And I would say that extends even to someone who's just coaching a regular class. It's like, there's more than just points of performance to teach your athletes. I mean, there's strategy you can, or just even, I call them how-tos of how to navigate a workout. Like is it always smart to just do the first round in 60 seconds and then hold on for dear life? Like what is, how do we communicate that with our athletes and kind of teach them on a higher level? So I would say that's probably the biggest thing I learned, coming out of New England, was just taking, and I don't like this word, but like a more holistic approach to training, a more complete approach. I'll say that, more complete approach to training. That was probably one of the biggest things I learned there.
Why don't you like the word holistic?
I guess it sounds just, I like what it stands for. It just sounds kind of cliche, but it fits, right?
Kind of a buzzword right now too, I think.
Yeah. But I mean, it's exactly what I want to say. So.
So back in 2010, you met Rich, and did you become fast friends right away? Tell us about your relationship with Rich.
What's funny about that is it's neat seeing athletes like up and comers in the sport and having perspective on that. Cause I remember like hearing chatter about, oh, this Rich Froning guy down south, he's going to be so fit, he's going to win the games a million times. And if you're a competitor and you hear that about somebody, your reaction isn't like, oh, I can't wait to meet him. Your reaction is like, who is this guy? He probably sucks. At least that was me. Maybe there are friendlier competitors out there. But I think I met Rich, and at that time, I don't know if he was engaged to Hillary yet, but he was just sitting somewhere in the StubHub Stadium, and I was just impressed with the weekend of him, and I went up and introduced myself to him, and obviously I had competed there too, and because it was like kind of really, I mean, both him and Graham Holmberg that year kind of, I think, set a standard that really sped up and catapulted the development of CrossFit Games athletes, because they just put out some times and some performances where just other people weren't doing that stuff yet. And so I just introduced myself, and we just kind of kept crossing paths through my proximity to Reebok headquarters. They were up here in Boston, his relationship developing with Reebok, our relationship with the equipment company, again, Faster at the time. So we just kind of kept crossing paths. And one of the really cool things was at that time, it was just like a lot of the competitors knew each other pretty well, because it was a pretty tight-knit small group, especially at the top at that time. I mean, the sport is still young. It was even younger back then. So it was just kind of like every year the games was really like I always felt it was like a family reunion where we were just really competitive with one another. So I think for the most part, a lot of the games athletes had really good relationships with each other and continued to develop that. So that's kind of how we met.
So in 2014, you go individual after 3 years of team, and you get to compete. So you'd done it previous, but you'd taken some years off. You go back and do it. And the CrossFit Games themselves had changed dramatically from the last time you competed to 14. What were the big differences you saw when you competed that year?
Honestly, the biggest thing I saw when I competed that year, other than the elevation of the level of athlete, was just the improvements they had made on sort of treating the athletes. I remember 2009 CrossFit Games. It was like, you were lucky if you just didn't get sunburned that weekend. Like that was like a win. Cause it was just at the Castro's ranch, and it was dusty, and it was awesome. Don't get me wrong. I mean, it was amazing, but compared to like again, watching the games this weekend, and they have their own little air conditioned trailers, and it's amazing. The 2014 games, I mean, there was a huge step up in athlete amenities and athlete control. We still had, we had like these big, large air conditioning tents where we could still, we were in the shade. It was air conditioned. We have our own little like booths where we could store our stuff, and it had like a little name placards, and it was all this kind of cool stuff. And that was definitely the biggest thing I noticed was just the production quality around the CrossFit Games. Yeah.
So after that games, Rich announces his retirement from individual competition.
Yep.
So how does it come up? You say it's like family reunions and you kind of see each other here and there, but there's a point where he makes a call or you make a call for that team on Mayhem. And how did that go down?
Well, what was interesting about that at that time, so 2014, like, wow, 6 years ago now, I had trained a fair amount down in Tennessee. It's because I felt like, it was going to be the right place to be if I wanted to make a push back to the games individual. I mean, Rich was a huge part of it down there, but there were always fit athletes coming through. And even just the athletes who are down there who regularly trained with Rich, there was just always somebody who was going to beat you at something. So it was a really awesome competitive environment. And it was also just a really fun environment to be in. I mean, it was competitive to the point where it was productive, not destructive. And, so it was, people wanted everyone else to get better, but they still wanted to be competitive with them. So that was really helpful. And Rich had been talking about that year, about how this was his last year. And I think a lot of us were like, yeah, okay, like whatever, we'll see it when it happens. And toward the end of the year, he just started talking more and more about team. And at the time, the restrictions for teams was that, you had that live-in rule, and you had to spend, live X amount of time, in that area training with that team. So for a couple, Rich had talked about how he really wanted to start going team. And so we had just discussed it. And then it was kind of somewhere around the end of December. He's like, so are we going to do a team? And I just kind of was like, yeah, sure. I'll be down January 1st, and that's, did I drive down that? I think I drove down that time. I went down to St. Thomas with some friends, and then it might've been on January 2nd. Like I basically flew home to Boston and then drove to Tennessee overnight. And, we arrived and I told Rich, I'll never forget this. I was so pissed. Started 2015. And I was like, all right, I've just been in a car for 19 hours driving, and I'm coming off and, a pretty wild trip in St. Thomas for New Year's. I'm going to go sleep. And he's like, no, we're going to go train at the gym. And I was about as mad and miserable as you could be, but we went and we trained, and I met some of the other, teammates who we were going to be competing with. And then I went home and slept for 14 hours. But, that it kind of just, we had talked about it. And then the opportunity was there and we just did it. It's just how it rolled.
So there are stories and legends of like some bets that you guys would make about your fitness.
Never my fitness, but some other people's maybe. Yeah.
Well, I've heard legends of your like GHD work.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. We were obsessed. I don't know why we did so many GHDs. It was just kind of a thing. We did a lot of them. And there was a young man down there, Dre Strom, who is an incredible athlete, multiple time regional competitor, won the team championship with CrossFit Mayhem. And he played football in college, super fit kid. And he, was really good at GHDs. And we were talking about GHDs, and somehow it came up about doing 1,000 of them in an hour. And I was like, it's impossible. It's just in my head. Like I was doing the math. I was trying to think about it. I'm like, and we did a lot. Like we would do, high order hundreds of them in a week, but I was still like 1,000 an hour. I was like, it just doesn't shake out to me. And Dre said, he's like, I could do it. And I was like adamant that no, you can't. So I said, I bet you $1,000. I bet, and Dre and I were roommates at the time. So it kind of worked out in my favor. Cause I think, he does it. He did 20 on the minute for 50 minutes. And he said it was hard, but not that bad. And
I would have bet him a case of Rhabdo for.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, he didn't get that either, like just got it done. And I think Matt Hewitt, teammate of ours then too, he bet him some money and Rich bet him some money. No one at that time, my girlfriend Cassandra, now my wife, was kind of unhappy when I told her. I was like, hey, I just bet Dre $1,000 to do this. And I was like, I really didn't think it was even in the realm of human possibility. But I really don't bet anybody on fitness tricks anymore. I learned my lesson quick. I kind of get close to getting sucked in to stuff. But yeah, he did it, and he did it really well. There's probably a video of it kicking around somewhere.
Yeah. The Mayhem crew seems to keep doing them.
Oh, good.
Only they're not for money. It's for like, I don't know if you've seen the videos of Tasia standing in front of Chick-fil-A in a Santa Claus outfit or.
I have not seen that. So like if you lose, you have to do like some sort of gimp thing.
Right.
Yeah.
They've
Dre
kept that
shaved his eyebrows one time, I think. He had to shave his eyebrows.
I did see
Yeah.
Yeah. I like that. It makes fitness a little bit more fun. I'm glad they don't do it for money. I guess I'm glad I taught everybody that lesson.
Yeah.
But Dre, I think he was my roommate, like I said, and I think he owed me for rent. And so I paid him $1,000 and then he gave me back like half of it. So, it all worked out.
So you compete with Mayhem for 2 years, and then you take a step back from team and you're going to go individual. And you have a great open. I think you finished 33rd in the world.
Yeah, that was 17, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then there's a freak accident with handstand walking and a homemade staircase or.
Yeah. So 17 actually. Yeah. That's close. 17. Yeah. I did have my best open finish. And I was helping train the Reebok teams. And then in 18, when I was going to try and compete again at regionals as an individual, because in 17, I kind of had this attitude of like, I'm done with competing, blah, blah, blah. But then I had my best open finish and I was like, that was weird. So I wanted to try again in 18. And then that's when they had in 18, it was like this cool workout. It was like pistols, muscle ups, and handstand walking up that little doohickey. And we had made one at our gym CrossFit Boston. And I walked across it and I kicked down and my foot, the side of my right foot kind of just banged into one of the stack of plates. And, you know, if you looked at the break on an x-ray, you'd be like, wow, James, you're a wuss. Because it's the tiniest little break in your fifth metatarsal, but it's in like this, I think it's called a Jones fracture. It's in like this perfect place to do lots of pain and damage. And so as soon as it happened, I knew something wasn't right. And because that was the first bone I ever broke. And I was like, this just doesn't feel like other stuff that's happened. So I stood up and I was like, I'm just going to walk it off. And I ran out the door. I ran 200 meters. And that felt okay. And then I came back inside and I started warming up. I was just like, I'll walk it off. And I started warming up for power snatches and I couldn't jump. Like I could walk flat footed. Like I could squat and deadlift on it. I mean, did it hurt at heavier loads, but I could do those things. But when I would try to jump, it felt like someone was trying to saw my foot in half. So I was like, that's weird. Maybe it's sprained really bad. So I coached class the rest of the day. I was at the gym. I had to coach classes that night. I coached classes that night. I didn't tell my wife, and I came home and got in bed. And I was like, I'll just see if it feels better in the morning. And I woke up in the morning and my foot looked like an eggplant. And I was like, well, I should probably tell her and we should probably go to the doctor. And just long story short, you know, like I said, small break, did a lot of damage. You know, doctor was like, yep, broken. And I was like, I think I was like 2 or 3 weeks out from regionals, maybe 4 when it happened. And, you know, I was like, well, could I compete? He's like, yeah, you can probably go for the week through the weekend, you know, but he's like, you're not going to do anything worthwhile. You know, you're just going to go and show up and kind of hobble through what you can. Cause that was the year they did the 333s. There was the Linda event. There was a power snatch burpee thing, but anyway, long story short, it was like, yeah, broke my foot and it turned out to be a blessing in disguise. My wife was competing with the Reebok CrossFit One team. And, you know, I got to spend the weekend supporting her and watching her compete with the team, and they made it to the games, which honestly, in retrospect, you know, for you, your son going D1, and you probably have watched a couple of his games, and man, I watching a loved one have to fight to compete. Yeah. I don't want to do that anymore. You know, like I'm out on that, right? You know what I mean?
It is so, I think it's more anxious producing watching somebody you love compete than yourself competing.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, 100%. And it was funny because I think I tore half my hair out that weekend, and I was like, you know, I would want Cassandra to get this chance again. I don't ever want to watch her do this again at regional. You know, games was a little bit more calm, but man, watching her go through regionals was like harrowing and nail biting. But I was really glad I got to do it and support her team and support her at the games. Cause again, it gave me a total different perspective of just the competitive experience and what it looks like, you know, truly being a spectator that is rooting for a certain team or a certain athlete. And I definitely learned a lot, but I was bummed. I mean, you know, what happens. But yeah, like of all times to break your first bone, it's just the way it rolls.
Well, let's touch on something happier. You mentioned Cassandra. How did you guys meet?
CrossFit, man. You know, like I said, you know, coming to Boston and doing law school is what really immersed me in CrossFit. I'll joke sometimes, and maybe you guys understand this too. Like I'm that cliche of like, the only problem with CrossFitters is they never stop talking about CrossFit. Like it's not the only part of my life, especially now, but it's a pretty big part of my life. I met her at the 2014 regionals. You know, I saw this attractive, fit, strong, powerful young lady. She's amazing curly hair. She was wearing these bright pink Lululemon leggings. She's actually just went downstairs to work out. She's wearing them today. I said, those are the rope climb leggings. And the event was like sprint back and forth and climb a rope legless. And I just watched her do the event, and I don't know what, some sort of special magnetism she had or whatever it was. And I went up to her after the event and I just said, hey, really nice job. And we sat down and chatted for a couple minutes. And I guess for her perspective at the time, and she tells this story, it's a little more fun, you know, and the rest was history after that. But I think she went and told her sister, she was like, oh my God. And I don't mean this as a way to like build up my ego, because I didn't feel like this about myself, but she's like, oh my God, I just met James Hobart, and you know, and she's like, it's amazing, and he's so awesome. Do you think he likes me? And I guess her sister said to her, it's not like you're going to marry him. And so proved her wrong. But
She did,
yes,
definitely did that.
But we met at a CrossFit competition, and then we were both kind of cross paths training at New England, and yeah, it was really awesome. Really awesome. Total surprise for me, but it was good.
Great story.
Yeah.
So let's talk about what you've got going on now too. You're part owner of CrossFit, One Nation CrossFit. I'm sorry. One Nation CrossFit.
Yeah, no, you got it right. CrossFit One Nation Boston.
Okay.
It's a lot of words.
Yeah. And you and Austin, I can never say his last name.
Maliolo. And I thought we were going to get through this whole interview without mentioning Austin.
Yeah, we've had a pretty
We
long,
failed.
torrid CrossFit love affair, so I think it's appropriate.
Yeah. So how did you and Austin come to collaborate?
Yeah. So, we've been friends in CrossFit for a long time. Originally just kind of frenemies back in 2010, competing against each other at the sectionals in Albany. And, we were kind of close together in the region. So we started training together, and then he eventually moved down to Boston to work for Reebok at their headquarters gym when they partnered with CrossFit. So he coached down there. We became closer friends. So we've known each other for 10 years now, and been friends through then. And he had been, and this was probably, I think he started Ham Plan in 2016, and he opened his One Nation affiliates, his first One Nation affiliate, I think in 2014, 2015. And he had been bugging me for a long time to partner with him in a gym or, work with him and Spencer Hendel on the Ham Plan. And I had really kind of just played hard to get and pushed him away on that. And it was just for the sole reason that I think, at least my attitude was in life, it's better to start a business with somebody who's just a business partner and then become friends, rather than be friends with somebody, start a business and try to develop a working business relationship. And that was really, I had a good friendship with Austin, and I just didn't really want to have to risk that because we're doing business. And about 3 years ago, I had finally, I'd moved back home, taken a bigger step back from competing, and I really wanted to get involved again with coaching. And it was sort of a lot of right place at the right time. We found out that CrossFit Boston, which was the original affiliate that I trained at in the Boston area, was going up for sale. The original owner, Neil Thompson, who started it in 2005, so this is a 12-year affiliate, wanted to sell it. And in my head, I was like, man, it would be a damn shame, because they don't give out city names anymore for affiliates. I was like, it would be a damn shame if we lost CrossFit Boston. That just goes away. Because it was, I think it's one of the first 50 or 60 affiliates in the world. And so that's when I started talking to Austin and his other partner, a fellow by the name of JC, about, hey, would you guys want to partner with me in purchasing CrossFit Boston? And that led to that. We started working together more closely there. And then Austin, I had been programming and writing class plans and selling that to affiliates, just a handful, 5 of them. And so I started talking to Austin and Spencer about, hey, we should combine forces and do this on the Ham Plan. And that was about 2 years ago. So we've been working, the 3 of us have been working together on the Ham Plan and growing out, our affiliate coaching arm for a while now. And, honestly, it was a really good choice, and I'm glad I waited to do it until I did. But we all work together really well. I think we do a good job of sorting out business and friendship and in between. And I think all of our skills have allowed us to do some really awesome things, both on the affiliate front and especially with the online programming front. I mean, it's been a big 2 years for the Ham Plan programming, even in spite of all the stuff going on with COVID. And we've learned a lot, and it's been a wild ride.
And you're also the owner of the Coach Development Plan.
Yep, that was another thing I got involved with. That was started by Denise Thomas, longtime seminar staff, CrossFit Level 4 member. Amazing. She's out at the games this weekend judging. Her and Austin started it as the coaching development program, as sort of a more intense clinical on your coaching and the day-to-day experiences of running an affiliate. And I started working with them about 1.5 years ago.
Awesome.
I am a graduate of that.
Awesome.
I have my certificate.
Did you came up here and took it?
I did it with Amy Lyons.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah, because I'm in Delaware, so King of Prussia's
Okay.
45 minutes away.
Yeah, Amy rocks. Yeah,
Yeah,
very
it's
cool.
great.
Well,
It's fun.
congrats. Yeah,
Thank
thanks for supporting that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad.
So the last thing I have on my list, James, is the Athlete Council, the new council that's been formed by CrossFit. You are one of the original members of that
Yep.
group.
Yeah.
With you, Annie, Neil, and
Meredith Root.
Meredith Root. There we go.
Yeah. Awesome group. The Athlete Council is really cool. I think, it was really flattering, and I'm grateful to be a part of it. Some people have said some really nice things about our nomination to the Athlete Council. But, I guess from my perspective, it's like I still feel like we're one small cog, and, the games team has always done an awesome job and has grown so much over the years. And we're really happy to be there. But, we're just one tiny piece of the puzzle. But it's been a really unique perspective. I've always really appreciated, the longer I've competed, I've really appreciated seeing the games from that side. Like, for example, just seeing what went into getting this year's games together and how it's changed. It's just continually impressed me about, how hard everybody tries to make something happen and make something good happen. So, yeah.
So Eric's only been in charge, 4 months, 5 months, maybe. So
Yeah.
How active were you guys able to be in this year's games because of that short time frame?
Yeah, so I'll kind of give you some insight into really what our specific role is, because I think there are some misconceptions about it, or just maybe people don't really know. So we don't have a ton to do in terms of what is the fitness test going to be? We're not sitting down with Dave and Justin Berg and Adrian Bosman and some of the other key game stakeholders and thinking out should it be 10 push jerks or should it be 7? Our role is to provide greater depth and insight into the athlete experience. So we discuss a lot of the things, with the online competition. We discussed a fair amount of things as far as just logistics, walking the games team through, and Annie was really instrumental in this as well. And, what is it like for someone in a totally different time zone to have to do a competition like this on a set schedule? That would be an example of something what we would walk through. Or, what are the issues as an athlete that you might perceive around having a run in an online competition? What are the obstacles that you are probably confronted with or athletes might have to deal with that are all over the world? So a lot of those issues around not issues, but concepts around logistics and fleshing those things out, as well as just discussing overall approaches to parity and fairness from the perspective of an athlete, and what is the athlete experience at different levels and times and parts of the season. And really that's what we're there to provide feedback on. I mean, there is probably some very, very little discussion on programming insight, but there's some of it. And, but really just that athlete perspective and what it is like to go through a season and maybe to have some insight on what is it or where is it that the athletes want the development of the sport to go, and not just in 1 year, but across a couple different years.
So what part did you play in the air-conditioned trailers?
Yeah, no, that I didn't have anything to do with that. So when we came on, I think, and if you remember, Dave, we had a September date set for the games and that got pushed back to October. I think Dave had a lot, once he realized that they were going to have to do a significantly smaller group at the games and that he was going to be doing a lot of it, in and around that Aromas ecosystem, I think he had already put a lot of that stuff down into paper. I mean, the games team is pretty industrious in terms of testing out and when testing starts and making sure that they get that stuff right. From there, there's a couple other people on the logistics side who have been working with the games team for years that I think, they had put a COVID plan into play. This was 4 months ago, as far as, setting up the trailers and how they were going to do testing and getting athletes inside the bubble. So, that was a lot of stuff that had already been locked down. What we really this time around talked about was the online portion, because that had changed. I think originally they had expected to have more people at the ranch if possible, but for a lot of reasons that's not possible. And then we've also done some discussion I don't think I'll get slapped on the wrist for this. We've done some discussion into what next season is going to look like structurally, and how to build that out.
Awesome.
We can't wait to hear about that. I'm very excited.
Like I said, I don't want to, there's a lot of stuff still being worked on. I do think the community at large, athlete community, affiliate community, will be very excited. And especially even if it doesn't occur next year, unfortunately, I think, a lot of us at CrossFit Incorporated are going to be taking COVID's going to be a more conservative view. I think it's going to be around or cause some ripples that are going to be around longer than all of us want it to be. But, maybe past the next year, next 2-3 years, I think, everyone is going to be really excited to see how the CrossFit Games season and ecosystem develops. I'm super hopeful, the games team and, some visions that Eric has and that Dave have discussed. I think everyone will be really excited.
That's really cool.
Yeah. Without I don't know, I can't really say much more.
No, you don't.
Yeah, I understand.
You said plenty.
That's exciting enough.
You gave us some hope.
Yeah, cool. No, I do. I mean that sincerely. I think there's a lot of hope out there and a lot of hope ahead. So, just got to keep our heads down moving forward and come out the other side of it. Definitely.
Yeah.
Kat and Amy, do you have anything to finish up?
We're like 1 minute away from the next event.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I wanted to get you guys
to
your event.
Yeah. Do you, I just want to know, do you have podium picks, men, women?
I think it's going to be hard to keep Matt and Tia off the podium, obviously. I'd really like to see, I'd like to see Justin up there just because he's such a young kid. And I think that's cool. And then the same thing about Haley Adams. I think, and on the women's side, I'd like to see, even though I think Tia would be hard to beat, I'd like to see a podium stacked with some women from the US, because I don't think that's happened in a very long time. But I'm a big fan of the younger athletes for the sole reason that I do think it's the future of the sport. And I know Dave's talked about this, but seeing athletes who have been training CrossFit for 5, 6, 7, Haley she's technically competed at the games 5 years now, so she's kind of a vet athlete, but she is 19 and she's hanging with the 3-time fittest on earth. And I just think that's super amazing. It's a sign, and it's kind of like looking into a crystal ball of things to come. So those are the hopefuls that I have. Yeah.
And just so our listeners know, we are recording between events of this year's CrossFit Games. So thank you, James, for squeezing that in for us.
Yeah, there you go. I'm 2:30 on the dot. So go enjoy. And I appreciate you guys taking the time to chat with me. So thank you. Thank you so much, Scott, Amy, and Kat. Thank you.
So nice.
You've been awesome. This was a great hour. So thank you.
All right, guys. Stay well.
All right. All right. I lost Kat.
Okay.
All right. I'm trying to end the meeting.
Okay.
There we go. That our podcast wanted to get to 1,000 subscribers on YouTube.
Yeah.
When you hit 1,000 subscribers, it allows you to do so much more. You have the ability to go live from different events, things like that. And Games Weekend, we really wanted to kind of go live and do some commentary of the games, but we couldn't because we don't have enough subscribers. So I reached out to Dave, and he has agreed to sponsor this kind of giveaway that we're doing in our road to 1,000. And that is, every time we hit a new century mark, we're going to give away an RX jump rope, the original RX jump rope. You get to pick the colors, you get to pick the thickness of the rope, but we want to give away a rope every 100 new subscribers we get. The key to that is you have to be a public profile when you subscribe. Hit that subscribe button. If you're public, I get to see your name. And so that way we can draw from those names and give away that jump rope every 100 subscribers. And so we are super stoked about this. We wanted to do something fun with it, and Dave and his team came up with this kind of concept, and we're really excited to keep moving forward with that.
Yeah, we're excited to help you along with that. And something I didn't tell you, but I might as well put it out there. We're going to throw some other little goodies in there. We're not going to say what they are, but and it may be different every single time, but whoever wins is going to get some extra little stuff in there. So it should be fun.
That's awesome. And so make sure you hit that subscribe button. Tell your friends, tell your family, because the faster we get to the next century mark, the next time we draw for another rope, and you're involved, whether you are the first subscriber or the 1,000th subscriber, you're still eligible to win in these giveaways. So